to push that button. So we are recording this session so that students who were not unable to make it can join. It's great to see all of you. My name is Linda Adams. I am a dietitian and I'm working with Paul and Dave on this project. And I'm assuming you know a little bit about the project. So I am going to share my screen. And we wanted to talk about nutrition and a little bit about motivational interviewing and how we're kind of thinking this whole thing is going to work. So welcome. All right, so hopefully you can see this slide. So welcome to the internship. You guys all went away. I've got to make this bigger so I can see some faces here. Here we are. Awesome. All right. So happy that you guys are here. So we are going to talk a little bit about how we see this going. So our agenda for today is listed right here. Overview the health team lab, which you may know partially about that. We're going to talk about what a nutrition session looks like, which actually it's the session at the end of the testing that we're going to talk about. So nutrition is a part of that, as is some of the physical activity metrics. And so it's trying to help the person with that all around set of information. So my specialty, of course, is nutrition. So that's kind of like what I'm going to be talking about. We'll talk about scope of practice and some resources. And I will provide you with a nutrition guide, which will be available to you on Box, and how to help someone towards action. My understanding is that Dave has a Google Doc now for scheduled shifts and work hours. Originally, if you're with River, you'll go through Vishal and Lauren to get your shifts. Is that accurate, Dave? Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to talk about is for the health team lab, we want to provide the assessment report, do the client-centered nutrition coaching, and we want to contribute metrics to the project, right? And so the project is partially about collecting metrics and seeing how this type of coaching can help people make change. So the nutrition scope of our lab is the dietary guidelines for Americans and Choose My Plate, or the balanced plate pattern that I'm going to show you. Some of you might be familiar with Choose My Plate. If you aren't familiar with Choose My Plate or with the dietary guidelines for Americans, I highly recommend that you Google those and look over them. That is the scientific review of all the evidence that we have and recommendations for healthy Americans. And that's our scope right there, is to use those guidelines to give information. Outside of our scope is things like diet prescriptions, specific advice related to treating a disease, as opposed to general information. So someone might say to you, they might make a comment, oh, well, my doctor said I had high cholesterol, right? So I'm supposed to watch my saturated fat intake. And that's okay. We can say, I can help you understand which foods are high in saturated fat, but you really need to talk with your doctor and maybe a dietitian who has access to your medical records to understand how to affect your blood cholesterol levels. So that's where we don't get into that specific advice relating to that. So I hope that makes sense. If at any time you have questions, you can type those into the chat. Paul or Dave, maybe you can watch the chat because I don't know where it is in my screen right here. But if anybody has a question, also feel free to unmute and just talk, because we want to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. So this one here on the right is choosemyplate.gov, and that's fine, and that's what you're going to see on the website. This one here is the one I use. The biggest difference is the dairy that's sitting out here next to the plate. The dairy is, this is a space that the honestly, it was sort of purchased real estate on this. There's a lot of politics around the food guidance, and milk actually is a super good source of protein, and it isn't the only source of calcium. So I just dragged this little milk glass over into the balance or to the protein section here. So this is a handout that I have been using for years that kind of allows people to see a visual of what kinds of foods ideally should make up the majority of their meals, right? There's no right or wrong, really. There's no good or bad. Only only each of us knows what's good for us. So science knows what we think, what our bodies need as far as nutrients go. And we know kind of which nutrients are in which foods. So when we share that with people, this graphic can be helpful to help them remember. So if you look at this, it's pretty easy to look at. It's a graphic of half of the food coming from fruits and vegetables, and then the other half, a great source of whole grain and a good source of protein. So it's pretty simple. Now, if you go on My Plate, Choose My Plate, there's a lot of information on there about different kinds of foods. It actually breaks it down into different types of fruits and vegetables, different types of protein foods like grains or like dairy, meats. They have different nutrients, and it's a great place to kind of just brush up on the basics. But essentially, this is a graphic to help people make sure that they're getting that protein, understand the grains part of it, and that this is a really important piece for me, is that half of it should be coming from fruits and vegetables. Not every meal. It's okay to have a meal that doesn't have any fruits and vegetables, but over the course of the day, we would like the food that we eat, or over the course of the week, we would like the food that we eat to be plus or minus half fruits and vegetables. That's what science thinks we need. Okay. In the center here, you find a carafe of oil. So fat is an essential nutrient. We have to have fat. Sometimes it comes in the food, like this chicken, the skin on the chicken has fat in it. Sometimes it's in dairy, if you have a low fat or a whole milk dairy or yogurt or cottage cheese or regular cheese. Of course, non-fat milk has no fat in it. Some grains have fat and avocados have fat. Some vegetables have very little, but varying amounts of fat. So sometimes we add it. And oils, and you can see the whole oil section in the store. Any liquid oil is a decent source of fat to drizzle on a salad or put in a skillet as you're cooking, or maybe make a pilaf with grains. It's an essential nutrient. So we have fats, carbohydrates, and proteins are the macronutrients. We're not going to get into that. We don't really have time, but this kind of gives you an idea of what a serving looks like and how many servings per day for the reference 2,000 calories, which everybody is different, and women tend to need fewer calories than men do. Active people tend to need more calories than sedentary people. So there's kind of a lot involved. The best way to know if you're getting enough calories would be if you're not hungry when you shouldn't be. If you're hungry throughout the day and you're trying to control the amount that you eat, that's a negative piece of dieting, and that should never happen, because you should be able to be well fed, feel sated, right, and get the calories that you need. I think most of the time getting extra calories comes from mindless consumption of things, oftentimes snack foods or other foods that are just sitting next to us, and we just eat them. Next thing we know, the container is empty, and where'd it go? Well, we mindlessly consumed that food. So the balanced plate concept includes the dietary guidelines, right? And so the dietary guidelines have certain recommendations that we're building into this nutrition report for this project. So you can see whole grain products, fish 2 to 3 times a week. Plant-based proteins are a part of it. Non-fat dairy products are recommended due to the saturated fat. Use of liquid oils. We're looking at plant-based oils and liquid oils. Almost any of them are good, and smaller portions. So these things are kind of what we have built into this. There could be opportunities for focusing on the recommendations at the bottom part of the slide, which are less than 10% of your calories from added sugar, which is kind of like a recommendation that's out there for me. I mean, most people wouldn't even know how to figure that out. But we have some information on that in the report. Likewise, for 10% of calories from saturated fat, and then getting sufficient dietary fiber. And then there are sodium guidelines as well. So the dietary guidelines for Americans, again, I would recommend that you go to that site and take a look at it. There's a lot of great information there. Does anybody have any questions so far on what we're talking about? I know it's just sort of right out of the chute here with a little bit of background information. So health coaches work with clients by listening and reflecting what they hear, by being supportive and non-judgmental. And Paul is going to talk a little bit about motivational interviewing and the stages of change, which is really important. If someone's not ready to change, it's really, it's useless to give them a whole bunch of information. So we have to understand where they're at. With food, it's super important to be non-judgmental. Oops, oh geez, how do I go back? Non-judgmental and supportive. Food is very personal. And when people, oh my God, they're going to assess my diet. Oh my gosh, it's really hard to be upfront and forthright with that information. So really coming across with a non-judgmental attitude and very supportive, because there is no right or wrong, right? It's what each of us wants to do. Helping people find their own solutions by letting them sift through what's going on with them, right? One of the most important skills is to ask open-ended questions and listen to the client. As you talk about nutrition and health, and it'll be talking about their physical activity level and their fitness metrics, listen, you listen to how it fits into their life and what they tell you about that. It's important that we engage with them as an equal partner. We're not telling them what to do, but rather we are helping them decide what they want to do based on where they're at right now. So hopefully that makes sense. Motivational interviewing is not a way to get people to change or a set of techniques that we impose on the conversation. It takes time, it takes practice, it requires self-awareness and discipline. We want to make it right. We want to give them all the information they need. You can do this, but really we want to give them the information, then find out how it fits into their life. And we don't want to give advice or try to solve problems unless that's what the client wants. And it's as you get experience with this, it becomes easier. So during the coaching session, I don't know, Dave, if you guys have gone over what the document looks like that is at the very end, where it gives their various physical, the stress, the results of the tests that they do. But part of it is going to be the nutrition recommendations. So at some point during that first clinic visit, they will be interviewed by you with the, I call it a food frequency. It's the nutrition questionnaire. So the nutrition questionnaire is a series of questions that asks, how often do you consume? And here's an example, although look at these codes first. So these responses, it's in the next one too. Yellow, blue, or unhighlighted is the code here. So fruits and vegetables, how often do you consume fresh, frozen, or canned fruits and vegetables? Dave, did you have something to add?
Nope.
No? Okay. So would it be every meal? Would it be 1 to 2 times a day, 2 to 4 times a week, once a week, 1 to 3 times a month, or rarely? And you stop and you listen. How often do I eat fresh fruits and canned vegetables? Most people have to think about that, right? Now on the document, there'll be some green ink here. Those are notes for you, what we're kind of looking for with that question, right? So, and when I wrote this, I wrote it for students. We are going to have some form of text that actually goes into the report for the client to read as well. So you'll get this document on its inbox or wherever you're getting all the other documents. You'll pull it up and you'll ask the questions, right? And you'll just circle. So if they say every meal, they have met the recommendation. If they say once or twice a day, that's pretty good, actually. But there is room for opportunity if you're interested. If they say any of these that are not highlighted, that does not meet the recommendation of the dietary guidelines. Does that kind of make sense? So the next one, how often do you consume 100% fruit juice? Every meal, 1 to 2 times a day. Neither of those meet the recommendation because that's too often. It's easy to ingest a lot of calories and honestly a lot of sugar, even if it's 100% juice. So I would say it's important for you to go through and read the notes on this before your first client, so that you get an idea of the angle that's being taken. Does that make sense? So for the juice, 2 to 4 times a week, that's not too bad. That's pretty infrequent. Anything less than that is closer to the recommendation. So it's a series. It goes through fruits and vegetables, it goes through protein foods, it goes through grains, and it goes through water, and what am I missing? Whatever I'm missing. At the end of this, then, when you're putting it into Doven's data sheet, it prints out a report, right? And so this is a sample of currently what that report looks like. And so then it flags things. So meats recommendations, and you can you see dark green vegetables, meats recommendation. You report it every meal, and the recommendation is at least once a day. So that's great. And then there's some verbiage here that talks about why that's good and what that does. It's one part of the new recommendations of Mediterranean diet intervention that's called MIND, which is really looking at how are we going to keep the brain healthier as we're keeping the body alive. And it talks about some of the minerals and the nutrients that are in that. This one, red and orange vegetables, you reported once a week. The recommendation is at least 3 times a week. Well, close. We want to always talk good before we talk where the opportunity is. So that's great. You're eating them, so you like them. The recommendation is 3 times a week. So there's some opportunity there if you're interested in that. And then whole grains, you reported 1 a week, and the recommendation is every meal. So you're not meeting the recommendation. And these are the reasons why the recommendation is every meal, right? So this is what that sort of report is going to look like at the end of after you've got everything recorded. So you'll go over that with them. And information is one thing, but nobody likes to be told what to do. Have any of you tried to change habits? It's really hard. It's hard to change habits, even if you really, really want to do it, right? Because our old habits are so ingrained and the way that we've been doing things. So motivational interviewing is a conversational way of coming up next to somebody and being with them in a very respectful and curious way to let them talk through what it is that they're interested in changing, because they might get this report and, have all these things that they might want to change. And part of our job is to help them narrow that down and take it one step at a time, right? And we do that. I do that with an action plan. And an action plan, I don't use the SMART version, but I use something that looks like this. And it really breaks down, okay, so you know what? I think I'm going to work on those grains, because those grains, I really didn't meet the recommendation. And that's important to me. I want to do that. So what will you do? When will you do it specifically, right? I'll eat more grains Okay, when, right? I will have brown rice instead of white rice for dinner. Okay, for dinner. So you would make that change. What do you need to do first to incorporate brown rice into the meals where you have rice? Right? So that, of course, well, I need to buy it. I need to plan the time to cook it, those kinds of things, right? Roadblocks that might arise. Well, I'm too hungry. I don't have 45 minutes to cook that. I'm just going to have white rice. That's a roadblock. I don't feel like brown rice. I really don't like brown rice. There's lots of roadblocks that could come up there. And so how will we handle those? What do you think, what are you going to do about that? My gosh, if you don't like it, that's going to be hard. Well, I guess I could slowly ease into it. So you're really curious about how the person's going to make that change, right? And how they're going to handle these barriers. We're just talking through it. And they might decide, yeah, I don't know about this. Maybe I ought to start by trying to eat more fruits and vegetables, so whatever it is. And then what can they do to make their success more likely? How they can get the support they need, right? Sharing your goals with people around you is a great way to get support. The date they started the plan, and then knowing that this plan may have to change. They may try this for a week and think, all right, I didn't do any of this. Well, now we know it doesn't work. And it's an experiment, right? So let's try something different to get you closer to your goal. And so it takes time to change, but this is what I'm envisioning. So the MI that I'm talking about using for this focuses on these things here: active and reflective listening, empathy, clear pattern of speech, probing questions, which are open, they are not yes or no, reflections, reflect back what the person says, sometimes called mirroring, reframing, helping them see things from a different perspective, perhaps, the action planning, and the summarizing. MI uses these tools, and you, over the course of your school, OARS, open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries, and then the EPE, elicit, provide, elicit. I have a training that I do with students who are interested. And after Paul talks about a few other pieces of motivational interviewing, I can tell you information about that training if you, in case you have time or are interested in doing it. I think it goes along really well with the internship. So Paul, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to you, and I'm going to put up this slide right here.
Great, thanks, Linda. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you out there. My little piece of all this is the motivation and the kind of the behavior change piece. And I just have one slide here that kind of dovetails into what Linda's presented already on the motivational interviewing. And then I'll start off with talking about the kind of the exercise and physical activity fitness side of this that we're trying to help our clients with in the form of coaching. So as Linda mentioned, the stages of change model, the pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, maintenance. This cycle we know applies to not just nutrition, but physical activity, fitness, exercise, all sorts of things in people's lives that they want to change. And there's more information on this. I think that my presentations that I gave to River were recorded, and we'll try to get links to those so that the new students tonight can access those to see what we've talked about already in previous training sessions. So one thing that, and Linda touched on this, that I just want to emphasize is what we're talking about here is helping people kind of identify the habits they have and then thinking about how they're going to form the new habits for the changes that they want to achieve. And again, on the exercise, physical activity, and fitness sides. And a big part of that is people's motivation. And we found through research and a lot of experience that motivation is based on a couple of things. One, I think the sub-basement, below the foundation, is someone's belief system. Do they believe they can actually do this? Be very surprised how many people come in and they kind of talk the talk to you like, oh, I want to change this. I want to be able to walk every day. I want to be able to do these things. They don't really believe that they can do that and stick to it. So if someone doesn't believe it, it affects their confidence. So sometimes I think we hit them with the confidence piece and give them some tools and things to improve their confidence, but sometimes it's getting at the belief. And by using the MI techniques with these open probing questions, we kind of tease out the differences there by what they respond to us. Is it someone's belief system, or is it just that I believe I can do it, I'm just not confident I can do it here or this way, or they don't know enough, which I'll get to about the knowledge piece down at the bottom. The other thing about motivation is many of us, our culture kind of pushes us to do this, rely too much on outside or external, what we call extrinsic motivational pieces. These are things like rewards or outside praise, um, things, what we look like, and what people think of us, when what we know is that the most powerful form of motivation that exists is what we call internal, intrinsic, or in the MI world is called autonomous motivation. And that means that the motivation comes within the person. I want to do this because I know it's going to make me healthier, and it's going to make me feel better, and it's going to extend my life. And of course, that extends to nutrition as well as exercise and physical activity. So what I try to do, or the words I use with my students, I try to nudge clients towards more of the intrinsic motivational pieces. Well, how satisfied will you be to be able to carry the groceries in from your car by yourself, or to be able to carry your grandkids around, or whatever it is that this person's trying to work on? They realize like, oh yeah, that'll be really fun. I'll really enjoy that. That'll bring me satisfaction. So that's a piece of this that we want to always tap into, because the motivation will, of course, help them with the habit change, help them to stick to a behavior, keep them in one of those motivation or action stages of changes as long as possible. A piece that's kind of a specialty of mine is the coming from sport and high performance, is this full engagement, is helping people stay engaged in activities, stay engaged in their food gathering and the cooking process and the eating process in a way that maybe they hadn't before, that the self-awareness helps them form and stick to these healthier habits. So staying fully engaged in an activity, whatever it might be, there's a process of that. There's a self-awareness that they have to learn. And again, we'll get some more things posted online for you to look at and help you understand how that works. The last piece here on I want to say about the exercise, physical activity, fitness side of it is I want to urge you to help people find the enjoyment, the fun, the satisfaction in physical activity. I hear a lot of people say, oh, I hate exercise. It's like, okay, well, we won't have you do any exercise. Would you be willing to do some physical activity? And it might sound like the same thing, but sometimes just wording it differently makes someone a little more belief or have confidence or a little more motivated. So I try to ask questions to tease out or try to probe and find out, what do they enjoy? Well, my wife and I used to take walks after dinner together down through our neighborhood. Well, great. Can you make a commitment to doing that 3 times a week instead of once a week, or something like this, where they enjoy that, they get satisfaction with that. So I think finding those things will help people along all the things that I've shown you so far: habits, motivation, and staying in those action stages of change. To the motivational interviewing, I really urge, I know we're making it optional, but I really urge everyone to do Linda's training. It's very, very concise. It's very, very thorough. Has some wonderful pieces into it that you can use throughout your future careers, regardless of what line of work you go into. These skills in talking with people and asking questions are, to me, life skills. They're just wonderful things. So for me, the idea of really listening, not just hearing. Hearing means the sound waves go in and it goes into your brain, but listening is this idea of processing what you're hearing from this person. And if you can, reflect back to them to make sure that you showing them that you understand what they heard. And of course, asking good questions that are not yes or no questions are an absolute cornerstone of this. During this question asking and hearing what they say, you assess their knowledge and history of their own exercise activity, their likes and dislikes about it, what they do already for fitness, for physical activity. It depends on what their careers, their jobs is. If we're getting the adults, the students, what their day-to-day things are, really depends. We talk about client-based goals. We're not supposed to tell them what to do. We ask them what their goals are. We help them define their goals or maybe describe them in a way that makes them more believable and more motivational. If we just, reframe them in a way that is more palatable to them, and then we're likely to do it. And of course, down here at the bottom, only give advice when asked for it. And if it's beyond your scope of knowledge or training, make sure you tell them that. But you can tell them that you can find out the answer to that question from one of us as the mentors that are helping to lead this. We're always available through the office hours or through email to be able to do that for you. And the last thing that in watching Linda's slides made me wish that I'd put at the bottom of mine, so I'm going to add it on now. And that's the idea of really spend some time identifying roadblocks people have for why they won't engage in physical activity and exercise. The number one we get all the time is, I don't have time. And I want to tell you and teach you right now, that is a lie. It's a lie that people tell themselves. They manage to find time to brush their teeth, manage to find time to do all these other things during the day. Everybody has the same 24 hours in the day. So you can find time to fit in activities, exercise. Don't ever take an elevator on campus. Take the stairs. There's a way. Don't try to get the closest parking space at Safeway. Park farther out. You walk in. I try to even push an empty grocery cart in so that I'm helping the workers there. And then I carry my groceries back out to my car if I can manage all that. So it's little things like that about these roadblocks that we can reduce them from using as excuses, can also help them with their progress. And that's the process. I'll be available. I think maybe I'll talk with Dave and Linda about if we want to do another training that's just on the exercise side of this. It's perfectly okay with me, and just see what time the students have and if we can do that. But thanks, Linda. That's my piece, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Paul. I love that. Fun and enjoyable has to be part of all change, because if it's dreadful, it's not going to happen. And I love that. Well, let's not, do exercise. How about just a little physical activity? That's perfect. And it's the same thing with food. We're not eliminating anything. Yeah, we're going to add more of the foods that we know are good for us and that we know serve our goals, but we're not going to eliminate anything. One of the books that I really love, I forget what it's called, but it addresses behavior change, especially around food, and addresses the diet culture mentality, which, those mentalities are everywhere with everything. There's expectations, right? And for each of us, we have to enjoy our life. And so we do as much as we can of the physical activity while we're still enjoying our life. And we eat as healthy as we can. We meet those health goals as much as we can while we're still enjoying our life, right? They don't take over. It doesn't become dreadful. And so it becomes a little bit easier. The time one is the big one for nutrition too. I don't have time. Well, I don't either, but I have time to see the new Richard Gere movie, right? So it is, you do the things that are important to you.
Right.
So yeah, I couldn't have said it better, Paul. Thank you so much for all of that. So that said, the training that I do is, it's with a dietitian. Her name is Molly Kellogg. And there's a couple of other dietitian motivational interviewing specialists that we use as we work through each of the pieces of motivational training. And that is optional for you to do. That's an additional activity that I would tell you about. The other thing is to participate in office hours as you need to bounce things off of me or Dave or Paul. If something comes up that you're not sure how to handle, or you just want to debrief on something, on how it went, to talk to one of the participants. So that's going to be determined very soon. I know it's not going to meet everybody's, but if you send me an email, we can make time to chat at a time that's convenient for you if you can't make the office hours. So next steps, the training, which is optional. I just wanted to give you a little bit more information about that. Currently, it's set up as a 10-week training there's reading and videos and practice. All of the information is in Box. So if you want to participate, you need to send me an email and I will add you to the Box file so that you can get in there and look at that. I will also forward you the syllabus, which has links to all of the materials. I'm going to do a when to meet to determine the best weekly. We can also do this bi-weekly, depending on student schedules and my schedule. We could do it bi-weekly for like 90 minutes instead of an hour every week. But what we do is we talk about the training pieces that we watched, that we listened to, that we read, and try to process those. And then we practice. So in the connecting with the client, we practice. We go into breakout rooms and practice simply connecting with each other. In the reflecting section, we talk about practice reflecting. I quiz you with closed questions so you can develop open questions. We talk about the writing reflex. We want to fix things for people, but we can't. Nobody wants to be told what to do. Right? If you tell me what to do and how to do it, I'm going to say, oh, yeah, whatever. Yeah, fine. Okay, sure, I'll do that. People are much more likely, like Paul said, to do things if they come up with it themselves and they've got their particular why, their motivation behind this. So let me know if you want to do that training. So you'll send me an email. I think you all have my email. If you don't, it is right here. Down here, lwadams@ucdavis.edu, as is Paul's and Dave's emails, so that you can let us know what you need to make this experience successful for you learning, as well as the participants that are coming through our team health lab, our health team lab. So what kinds of thoughts or questions do any of you have? Let's use this time. We have some time to address what you're thinking as you're anticipating going to your first shift.
This is kind of unrelated, but I was trying to access the nutrition documents from the first link and I just can't access them.
Are you from the slides?
The first link that Dave sent, and then
Dave sent.
Yeah,
I put in I put in 2 links that were from our basically documentation that says here's the training that people should go through and to be able to access the YouTube videos. For example, the sample interview you did with Dovin, and then also some of the documents. So Leslie, you're having trouble accessing, just doing the link and not being able to access it?
Yeah, it just says page not found.
Okay, let me check with Dovin and see if somehow he's moved that to some other spot. But anybody else tried it and get the same thing?
I'm seeing the document on my end, so.
So it looks like some of you are able to see it.
Oh, so Leslie, are you not on a UC Davis account?
I thought I was. I'll double check.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes Box can be tricky that way. What other questions does anybody have? You're good, Lauren. So we're going to take these people through these tests and we're going to give them the questionnaire about the foods that they eat. Then we provide them with that report and help them decide where they want to go from there.
So Linda, if I was sitting on the other end of the table and doing this discussion interviewing process, I would feel like, what if they asked me what type of fish? You said I should have fish 2 or 3 times a week. So how specific and or general do you get on that?
That's a really good question. And so our scope, right, would be, gosh, any kind of seafood. What kind do you like? Right? Now, in reality, it's the fatty fish that have much more of the omega-3 fatty acids, the marine oils, and that's the why behind that recommendation. So, you know, for me, if they don't eat any fish right now, any fish that they add into their diet would be a good change, right? And then the fatty fish like salmon or mackerel or tuna, and you can find that information in the dietary guidelines. So I really suggest that you read that. And I had told Dovin that the text in the current reports for the nutrition, I want to rewrite that because he took the text that I wrote for students and plopped it into the recommendations. And I think that could be written a lot better to be in the recommendations. So I can actually include the type of fish.
So in general, though, for us on the naive side, not having the expertise that you have, it would be more the generalization to look at the grains and be able to say just adding any additional grains maybe is the way to go rather than getting nitpicky and specifically trying to give a person, yeah, eat this particular type of grain. But just
Absolutely. What kind of grains do you like? Which ones have you tried? I don't want to say, have you tried spelt? Because that's a yes or no question. I want to say, what kind of grains have you tried? Which grains did you enjoy? What format were they in? Were they in a bread? Were they in, were they the whole grains that you cooked on the stove? What did it look like? Were they cereal? There's a lot of different ways to eat grains. Does that make sense, Dave?
Yeah, and that experience that we're going to have, though, is going to be very different than yours also, right? Because you could just rattle off all these different types of grains. And so nobody else, a lot of the people won't know all those different types. So from a educational perspective, I wouldn't feel comfortable being able to say, oh, what types of grains have you tried necessarily? And then even know maybe what their answers would be from all the different cultures and things that are out there. Mm-hmm. So again, I would feel like I just have to kind of take a step back as a person trying to extract information and gather that information and then redirect it back to them, right? So did you like it? Or is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's all about what they've tried in the past, what they liked, what they think they could do again, what is something that would fit into their life that they could do on a regular basis. If you aren't familiar with the grains, again, I would say go to that Dietary Guidelines for Americans. It's a wonderful website. They have a lot of information on there. And if you make one trip through there, I think you'll know a lot more about the different foods in each of those kind of nutrient areas.
Linda, if I could jump in here quick.
Yes, please.
I just want to clarify, Dave, what you brought up. Remember, just that line of questioning is making the person more engaged and aware of what it is they do. I think that people that don't watch their nutrition carefully are really often unaware of what they've eaten. We know from doing food logs, it's hard for them even to remember what they ate 2 days ago. So it's just anything we're doing that gets them more engaged in this process of paying attention to what's going in. That's going to be the start for that person's behavior change in nutrition and, of course, in exercise and activity.
So all the interns, are you guys feeling very comfortable about this? You guys are looking like you've got it. So that would be great. Any questions for these experts here that you can pick their brain on right now?
I have a quick question. So for all we have to do is complete all the training modules And then after that, are we able to like sign up for a shift? Is
Yeah,
that
great.
like the
Yeah, great question. Is it you say it Raven?
Ruven?
Raven. Okay, Raven.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the idea is you have to complete all those training modules before you can start interacting with the participants, right? But that's not to say, well, if you're looking at it and you're looking at all the things on that checklist sheet and you say, okay, I'm pretty confident I can get this done next Wednesday, well, then feel comfortable signing up for a shift that next Thursday or the following Tuesday or something. So yeah, you should be signing up. Otherwise, maybe they'll be all gone, right? You won't get a chance to be there for another 2 or 3 weeks or something.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have a question. So I know Linda, or forgot which one, Linda or Paul, but one of you mentioned that if there's like a question that the participant asks and we just don't know, and it's kind of outside our scope, it's more so that we go to all three of you for advice, but then we're not referring anyone to you three. Is that right?
Was that directed at Linda?
All three of you. I'm not sure.
Sorry,
I
let's
think- oh, God.
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you definitely need to tell them, I don't know. Let me find out and get back to you. If they have a question about, even if they ask you, well, gosh, which kinds of fish are the best ones to eat? And you don't know, I don't know, but I can sure find out for you. Let me go ahead and get that information and I'll email it to you. Now, as far as referring them to me, I don't know that would, be necessary. And I think though, if they want to be referred, my scope is the same as your scope. So if they have something that they want to work on that's a personal goal with their medical history, they need to go to their primary care and they need to talk to that person and get referred to a dietitian who has access to their medical records. Because honestly, my scope is the same as your scope.
So Leslie, my answer to that question would be, you're the interface with the participants. We're your backup. And so I think all of us are going to have like debrief. I consider myself always coming in doing debriefing sessions. Linda's going to act much more on the office hour kind of thing. So I say you listen to them, you understand their questions and make sure you write them down or however you keep that. And then you can come to our office hours or our debriefing sessions or whatever Paul's going to be doing on his side as well and bring those up. I don't think you just want to punt and say, go talk to Dave, go talk to Paul, go talk to Linda. You want to be learning through this process as well. And so again, understand the question. So that's a process for you, learning how do you get the most information you can to be able to then go in. But I'm sure that probably all three of us will be saying, well, great, Leslie, after you got that question, did you go research it a little bit? Did you look something up on, some research articles? And what did you find out to that question? And then we can kick around the ideas and then we can bring it up either as a group if it's in an office hour, or if I'm walking through the lab and there's not much going on, we can all talk about it and kick around ideas. We're all going to learn from each other through this whole experience. So Paul, your thoughts?
Yeah, Dave, just don't forget Dovin as another resource.
Yeah, so Dovin is our graduate student researcher and he's put together a lot of his stuff. So he will be a great resource also.
So when it comes to a point where the client they want more help, but it's outside of all of our scope, but they want that help, we would have to refer them to and tell them, oh, we encourage you to reach out to your primary care provider or someone who can help you with this. So that's how we would do it, right?
Yeah, and I think that depends on exactly what the question is. So somebody could be, in my area of expertise, somebody could come to you and they have osteoarthritis, right? Their knees are really getting in trouble. And we might be thinking, okay, we want to increase their physical activity. Well, can you swim? Can you walk? Those are yes and no. So I probably wouldn't do it that way. But, what are the things that you like to do that you can do? And then what the answers are, then we would trying to direct them that way. But if it's a specific thing, like how do I treat my osteoarthritis? Well, then, yeah, I'm going to refer them to their orthopedist or their sports medicine doc or some person like that in that arena. And I would assume Linda would say the same thing.
And Dave, I would just say for fitness, physical activity, there's a lot of other resources on campus that we already can direct them to if people, I want to join one of the group exercise classes at the ARC. Like there's plenty of resources that'll be easy for us to refer those clients to.
Well, we have like just a list or kind of like a database of resources to like kind of look through in case like there's any of these type of situations come up. Because I know there's a lot of resources, but I don't know if it might be like a big hassle just try to find everything, and it might take some time.
Yeah, absolutely, Les. That's a great question. We've been struggling with that all summer because part of Healthy UC Davis, kind of our mothership on this thing that's helping sponsor this, what we're doing, they have a repository of all these different resources that are out there. And it's a matter of, we've got to somehow distill that down to something that we think in our interviewing process that our participants will want, right? We don't want to just say, again, punt and say, go to the Healthy UC Davis website. There's all kinds of resources there. So if we're talking to them and we understand that, oh, they seem like they are open to yoga classes or something, then I think it's our job to understand what's at the Healthy UC Davis website and what some of these resources are and be able to then to direct them. Oh, it sounds like what we're hearing is, are you familiar with the Noontime Active Aggies program or something that brings some of these activities to local neighborhoods? So I think it's up on us. Yes, we need to go to the Healthy UC Davis website and look through those resources and have a pretty good understanding of that. And we have some lists, like even in the health team lab, of what some of those resources are, so you can glance through that and see what's out there. But
Okay.
that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a quick logistical question about tomorrow specifically. So is there going to be someone like at 10:30 or so before the first, like just so that everything's open, or just to make sure since it's the first?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be there, Vishal. And
Okay.
I'm hoping that when Linda and Paul are done with this, I'm hoping Linda won't cut me off and I can stay on like 2 more minutes. And then I want everybody that's on tomorrow to launch this great health team lab. We'll just stay on for a minute so I can make sure we're all on the same page as we go into this thing.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Any wrap ups, Linda or Paul? Takeaway messages for these guys? They're not asking you any questions.
It's hard. It's hard to even visualize what this is going to look like, honestly. And so I get that. And you just have to know that I'm willing to talk through anything with you. So please do send me a note. Yeah, because it's all going to be okay.
And
It's
Paul, you're
scary.
going to be out of touch here for a little bit, right?
I'm here till the 11th, and then I'll have some spotty times when I have no wireless, no contact. So, but I'm always going to be checking email. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay, so just as a heads up for all of you, if you do have some of the motivational behavior side that you want to run by Dr. Paul there, hit him up before the 11th. Otherwise, you may be a few days out as far as return. Linda always has her office hours, and I don't have office hours set up yet as I'm still trying to figure out my schedule for fall. But like I said, I will be popping in and out of the lab, and I would prefer to do the debriefings either before or after times that you might be in the lab. So if you're experiencing something and you're going to be there the next Tuesday, then certainly email me and say, hey, can you stop by at the end of the 6 o'clock shift or the 1 o'clock shift or something? And I'd love to just come by, because then I can hang out and see what's happening at the end of the shift anyway, and then answer your questions right there on the spot and walk through any things you have with the physical testing or things that are going on that way. All right, then I would say thanks everybody participating. Again, feel like contacting any of us with questions. If you didn't want to ask them right here in front of everybody else, feel free to email us. And then Linda, if you could stop the recording, and then everybody can jump off except for